March 17, 2019. 11:47 p.m. A notification lights up a screen in San Francisco, then another, then thousands. In the next 60 minutes, one man will watch his entire world collapse. A billion-dollar company built from nothing will become worthless. The person responsible? The same man who created it. This isn't a story about fraud or deception. This is about something more dangerous, ambition that refused to listen, and the single decision that burned everything to the ground. But to understand how it all fell apart in one night, we need to go back 22 years, to a kid in Baltimore who had absolutely nothing. Daniel Westbrook was born on August 4, 1979, in the Highland Town neighborhood of East Baltimore. His father walked out 3 weeks before Daniel's 3rd birthday, never came back. His mother, Caroline, took on double shifts just to keep the lights on, mornings at a cardboard packaging plant on Eastern Avenue, nights cleaning office buildings downtown. Daniel wasn't a prodigy. He didn't skip grades or win science fairs. But he was curious, relentlessly, obsessively curious. Neighbors still remember him, a skinny kid with oil-stained fingers, sitting alone on the concrete steps of their narrow row house. Around him, piles of dismantled radios, broken alarm clocks, old computer mice with their guts spilled out. While other kids shot hoops at Patterson Park, Daniel took things apart. He needed to understand how they worked, why they failed, whether he could fix them. His mother would come home exhausted at 11 p.m. and find him still awake, hunched over some half-reassembled gadget under a single desk lamp. She'd ask, "Baby, why do you do this?" He never had an answer. Not then. But years later, in one of the few interviews he gave before everything collapsed, Daniel described those childhood nights differently. He said, "I wasn't trying to fix radios. I was trying to prove I could build something that mattered, something she could look at and feel proud of." Seconds. That need to prove himself, it never left. And 2 decades later, it would be the very thing that destroyed him. Fall of 1997. Daniel Westbrook enrolled at the University of Maryland on a partial academic scholarship. His major, mechanical engineering. His focus, somewhere else entirely. While his classmates buried themselves in thermodynamics textbooks and calculus problem sets, Daniel lived in a different world. He read biographies of Steve Jobs, studied how Elon Musk thought, consumed startup blogs like they were oxygen. He'd sneak into pitch competitions he wasn't invited to, sitting in the back row, absorbing every presentation, every investor question, every rejection. His roommate, a quiet software developer named Adrian Chen, watched this obsession up close. Years later, Adrian would recall those college nights vividly. Daniel would stay awake until 3, sometimes 4 in the morning, hunched over cheap spiral notebooks under flickering dorm lighting, page after page filled with sketches, product concepts, business models, wild ideas that would never see daylight. Adrian remembers asking him once, "Do you ever sleep?" Daniel looked up, exhausted, and said, "Sleep doesn't build companies." Most of those ideas died in those notebooks, but one didn't. May 2003. Fresh out of college with a degree he barely cared about, Daniel launched his first real company. He called it Streamlink. The concept was clean, one physical device that connected every piece of home electronics you owned. Your TV, your stereo, your DVD player. Everything controlled through a single interface. One remote, one system. Complete synchronization. On paper, it was revolutionary, the kind of idea that gets covered in tech magazines and demoed at expos. In reality, it was a nightmare. The first prototype caught fire, literally. During a demonstration at a small consumer electronics expo in Richmond, Virginia, the device overheated, started smoking, and died on stage. Daniel stood there in front of 40 people, holding a melted piece of plastic, trying to laugh it off. He rebuilt it. Version 2 worked better, except it only functioned properly on Tuesdays. His engineer, a freelancer from Craigslist, couldn't figure out why. Something about signal interference and day-of-week algorithms that made no logical sense. Early beta testers were brutal. One review called it confusing and unnecessary. Another said it was clunky garbage. The harshest? A tech blogger wrote, "Streamlink is a solution to a problem absolutely nobody has." Daniel read every word, every criticism, every dismissal, and he kept building. He maxed out 3 credit cards, Visa, MasterCard, Discover, over $78,000 in total. Moved into his office space, a cramped room above a dry cleaner on Route 1 in College Park. The smell of detergent and steam seeped through the floorboards. He showered at the campus gym. Ate instant ramen for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Gas station coffee kept him functional. 4 hours of sleep became normal. His co-founder, a college friend named Jesse Hartman, believed in the vision at first. Jesse handled the business side, pitches, emails, investor outreach. For a year, they ground it out together, but by month 13, Jesse was done. Daniel remembers their last conversation in the parking lot outside the office. November 2004. Cold rain. Jesse, standing next to his car, keys already in hand. "Daniel, this isn't working. We've burned through 80 grand. Nobody wants this thing. One more iteration. Just give me 3 more months." "You've been saying that for a year. I have student loans. I need a real job. I can't do this anymore." Jesse got in his car, drove away. Daniel stood there in the rain, watching his only partner leave. Later, he'd tell an interviewer that moment hurt worse than any investor rejection, because Jesse believed in him, until he stopped. April 14th, 2005. Daniel got one final meeting, a mid-tier venture capital firm in Philadelphia called Keystone Ventures. His last shot at funding, his last chance to save Streamlink. He practiced his pitch for 3 straight days, memorized every sentence, every data point, every potential objection and response. The meeting lasted 11 minutes. The lead investor, a man named Gordon Fisk, barely touched the prototype. He sat back in his leather chair, arms crossed, face blank. Halfway through Daniel's pitch, Fisk interrupted. "Stop! This is broken!" Daniel froze. "The idea's broken. The execution's broken. You're solving a problem that doesn't exist." Daniel tried to respond, tried to defend it. Fisk cut him off. "I'd be doing you a favor by telling you to quit now. Save yourself the time." The meeting ended. No handshake. No, "we'll be in touch." Just a door closing behind him. Daniel doesn't remember the drive back to Maryland. He remembers sitting in his car in that parking garage for over 2 hours, staring at the steering wheel. He remembers calling his mother, phone pressed to his ear, unable to form words. She stayed on the line anyway. Quiet. Just breathing. And he remembers the exact moment something inside him cracked open. That night, 2:13 a.m., staring at the Streamlink prototype on his desk. Daniel had a realization. People didn't hate what he was trying to solve. They hated how he was solving it. The hardware was the problem, not the idea. At 2 a.m., he made a decision that would change his entire life. He picked up the prototype, threw it in the dumpster behind the dry cleaner. 2 years of work, gone, and he started over, this time with software. If this story's hitting you, hit that like button. Summer 2005. Daniel Westbrook locked himself in that cramped office above the dry cleaner and started over from zero. No prototype, no co-founder, no funding, Just him, a used Dell laptop, and an idea he refused to let die. He taught himself to code, YouTube tutorials at midnight, programming forums at 3 a.m. He'd post questions on Stack Overflow and wait hours for strangers to help him debug basic functions. It was humbling, frustrating, but he kept going. 6 months later, he had something. Not hardware, software. Simple, clean, functional. The platform did exactly one thing. It automated inventory tracking for small to mid-sized warehouses. That's it. No flashy features, no unnecessary complexity, just a tool that helped warehouse managers know what they had, where it was, and when it was moving. Boring? Absolutely. Unglamorous? Completely. But desperately, desperately needed. He called it Apex Logistics. His first customer was a furniture warehouse in Baltimore, a place called Riverside Storage on Poteet Street. The owner, a guy named Frank DeLuca, agreed to try it for $200 a month. Frank later said he only signed up because Daniel looked like he needed a win. It worked. Within 2 weeks, Frank's inventory errors dropped by 60%. He told a friend who ran a medical supply distributor in Towson. That guy signed up. Then a regional shipping company in Delaware, then another and another. Word spread slowly, but it spread. By January 2008, Apex Logistics had 40 paying clients. By summer, 200. By the end of that year, over 1,000. The revenue curve wasn't just growing, it was climbing vertically. Daniel hired his first employees, real office space in downtown Baltimore, not above a dry cleaner. Actual desks, a conference room with windows. For the first time in his life, Daniel felt like he was building something real. And then, finally, an investor said yes. Her name was Dr. Patricia Nguyen, former chief security officer at a major financial services company. She'd spent 20 years in cybersecurity before moving into venture capital. She saw Apex's numbers, met with Daniel twice, and wrote him a check for $500,000 in seed funding. But the check came with a conversation Daniel would remember for the rest of his life. They sat in a coffee shop in Fells Point. Patricia slid the term sheet across the table. Then she leaned forward. "Your platform handles sensitive business data, inventory numbers, client information, operational schedules. If you scale this thing, security cannot be an afterthought. Ever. Do you understand me?" Daniel nodded. "I understand. I'm serious, Daniel. You cut corners on security, and this whole thing collapses. I've seen it happen. I've watched companies implode because they moved too fast and forgot what they were protecting. I won't let that happen. Good, because I'm betting on you. Don't make me regret it." Daniel shook her hand. He agreed. He promised. And in that moment, he meant it. But as we'll see, that promise meant nothing when the stakes got higher. The next 7 years were a blur of growth Daniel never imagined possible. Apex exploded from a scrappy startup into an industry standard. By 2015, over 10,000 businesses across the country relied on Apex to manage their supply chains. Warehouses, distribution centers, logistics hubs. If it moved products, it probably ran on Apex. The company raised $80 million in Series B funding, then $200 million in Series C. Investors who once ignored Daniel's emails were now begging to get in. August 4th, 2014. Daniel's 35th birthday. Apex Logistics was valued at $1.2 billion. With a B, Daniel Westbrook, the kid from Highland Town who ate ramen for 2 years straight, who got laughed out of pitch meetings, who threw his failed prototype in a dumpster, was now on the cover of Forbes. Wired magazine called him the comeback founder. TechCrunch ran a feature, "From hardware failure to billion-dollar software empire." He did the conference circuit, gave keynote speeches, got invited to panels about resilience and entrepreneurship. People wanted to hear his story. He became very good at telling it. But something had changed. Former employees, most speaking off the record, describe a different version of Daniel during those years. Someone who cared more about press releases than product roadmaps, who dismissed engineers when they raised concerns, who seemed more interested in the next headline than the next innovation. Adrian Chen, his old college roommate, visited the Apex headquarters in San Francisco in late 2016. They had lunch at some trendy place in Soma. Adrian noticed something off. Daniel kept checking his phone, not for texts or emails. He was refreshing TechCrunch, checking Twitter mentions, searching his own name on Google every few minutes. I asked him about the product, and he gave me generic answers. But when I mentioned a blog post about him, his whole face lit up. That's when I realized he'd fallen in love with his own story more than the thing he built. Other warning signs appeared. Engineers flagged security gaps during internal reviews. Daniel told them to prioritize new features instead. A senior developer raised concerns about scaling too fast without reinforcing the infrastructure. Daniel scheduled the meeting, then canceled it 3 times. His focus had shifted. From building something that worked to becoming someone people talked about, and that obsession, that need to be seen, to be validated, to prove he'd made it, was about to cost him everything. If you're hooked, subscribe now. This story's about to take a turn you won't see coming. October 9th, 2018, Daniel Westbrook received a phone call that would define the rest of his life and end his career. The caller was a senior vice president at Global Tech Industries, a Fortune 100 corporation with operations in 43 countries. They wanted to partner with Apex, not a small pilot program, not a trial run, a full integration. The deal was enormous. Global Tech would implement Apex platform across every warehouse, distribution center, and logistics hub they operated worldwide. 3,000 locations, tens of thousands of employees. Millions of data points flowing through Apex's system every single day. Overnight, Apex's revenue would double, maybe triple. This was the kind of deal that turned billion-dollar companies into $10 billion companies. For Daniel, this was more than business. This was vindication. Final, undeniable proof that the kid who failed with hardware, who got humiliated in a parking garage in Philadelphia, who was told his idea was broken and worthless, proof that he'd won, that he'd made it, that everyone who doubted him was wrong. He wanted this deal more than anything he'd ever wanted in his life. But there was a problem. Actually, several problems. And Daniel's engineering team saw them immediately. The integration timeline was aggressive, unrealistic even. Global Tech wanted Apex's platform fully operational across all 3,000 locations in 90 days, 3 months, start to finish. Apex's lead engineer, a woman named Simone Graves, 15 years of experience, MIT graduate, former infrastructure lead at Amazon, ran the numbers. She brought them to Daniel in a meeting on October 18th. We need minimum 6 months to do this safely. We're talking about integrating our system into their existing infrastructure. Different protocols. Legacy systems, some of their locations have been running since the 90s. If we rush this, we're opening vulnerabilities we can't close. Daniel leaned back in his chair. Global Tech's timeline isn't negotiable. They've got quarterly targets, board expectations. We agreed to 90 days, so make it work. Simone stared at him. Daniel, I'm telling you we can't. Not without cutting corners. Then cut corners. We'll patch issues after launch. That conversation set the tone for everything that followed. Then there was the data problem. Global Tech's system required real-time access to inventory data. Not just numbers, client information, shipping schedules, supplier details, operational logistics, sensitive information that, if exposed, could cripple entire businesses. Apex's platform wasn't designed to handle that volume of sensitive data at that scale. Not securely, not in 90 days. Simone raised this concern in 3 separate meetings: November 2nd, November 19th, December 12th. Each time, Daniel dismissed her. Internal emails later reviewed by federal investigators tell the story. On December 14th, Daniel sent this to his engineering team. "We can patch security post-launch. Right now, we need this deal closed. Focus on delivery, not hypotheticals." 2 senior engineers quit in January 2019. One of them, a security specialist named Marcus LeBlanc, sent Daniel a final email before walking out. It was blunt. "You're prioritizing optics over safety. You're ignoring every warning we're giving you because you want the press release more than you want a secure product. When this blows up, and it will, remember that people warned you. Remember that you chose this." Daniel read the email, deleted it, and moved forward anyway. Later, sitting in a deposition, Daniel would be asked why he ignored the warnings. His answer was quiet, almost defeated. "I thought we could handle it. I thought we were good enough, fast enough, smart enough to make it work. I was wrong." March 17th, 2019, launch day. The integration went live at 6 p.m. Pacific Time. 3,000 global tech locations across 6 continents were now connected to Apex's platform. Real-time data syncing, inventory tracking, operational logistics flowing through a system built in under 3 months. Daniel stood in Apex's San Francisco headquarters, surrounded by his executive team, watching dashboards light up green. Location after location coming online. No errors, no crashes, smooth. The first hour was flawless. Systems synced perfectly. Data flowed without interruption. Daniel opened a bottle of Veuve Clicquot. People cheered. Someone handed him a glass. At 7:23 p.m., Daniel posted on Twitter, "Today we made history. Apex is now powering the largest logistics network on the planet." This is just the beginning. Tech blogs picked up the story within minutes. TechCrunch, The Verge, Bloomberg. Everyone wanted to cover the deal. Daniel checked his phone obsessively, refreshing, reading headlines, watching his mentions explode. At 11:34 p.m., his phone buzzed. Simone Graves. He almost didn't answer, but something in his gut told him to pick up. Her voice was tight, controlled, terrified. "We're breached. If you're not subscribed yet, now's the time. What happens next will leave you speechless." 11:34 p.m. Simone Graves confirms unauthorized access to Apex's database. Someone, or something, had broken through their security protocols and was inside the system. 11:41 p.m. Security logs light up. Data extraction detected from multiple client accounts. Not just one breach, dozens. Inventory records, client information, shipping schedules, all being pulled from the system in real time. 11:52 p.m. Global Tech's internal systems start crashing. One location goes dark, then 10, then 100. Warehouses can't access inventory. Distribution centers freeze. Shipments scheduled for the next morning halt. Their entire global operation grinds to a complete stop. By midnight, businesses across the country that relied on Apex to operate were dead in the water. A pharmaceutical distributor in Columbus, Ohio, couldn't track temperature-sensitive medications worth millions of dollars. A grocery chain in Houston had zero inventory data for morning deliveries to 400 stores. Emergency rooms in California, waiting for critical medical supplies, had no idea where their shipments were or when they'd arrive. People's lives were on the line. And the system that was supposed to help them had just become their biggest problem. Daniel stood in the Apex Operations Center, surrounded by engineers frantically typing, trying to contain the breach. Screens everywhere flashing red. Alarm notifications pinging non-stop. Someone shouted about shutting down servers. Someone else yelled about data loss. The room felt like it was collapsing inward. Simone looked at Daniel across the room. She didn't say anything. She didn't have to. Her expression said it all. I told you this would happen. At 1:18 a.m., the first public report hit Twitter. Breaking. Massive data breach at Apex Logistics exposes client information. Cripples global tech operations worldwide. Within 15 minutes, the story exploded. Retweets, quote tweets, news alerts. Tech blogs scrambling to confirm details and post coverage. By 3 a.m., Apex Logistics was trending globally, not for innovation, not for growth, for catastrophe. Tech journalist Sarah Emerson tweeted, Apex Logistics just proved why you don't rush cybersecurity for a press release. This was avoidable. Industry analyst David Shaw posted, This is what happens when founders care more about valuations than vulnerabilities. Apex ignored every warning sign. Someone dug up Marcus LeBlanc's resignation, his warnings, his email to Daniel. It got screenshot and shared thousands of times. Daniel sat alone in his office, phone in hand, watching his company implode in real time on social media. Every refresh brought more criticism, more anger, more people saying they saw this coming. Later, in a private conversation with a journalist, Daniel described those hours like this. It was like watching everything I'd built burn to the ground and knowing, really knowing, that I was the one who lit the match. By 8 a.m. the next morning, March 18th, the damage was catastrophic. Global Tech Industries immediately terminated the partnership. No negotiation, no grace period. Done. At 10:47 a.m., their legal team filed a preliminary lawsuit against Apex for breach of contract, negligence, and failure to meet agreed-upon security standards. The amount they cited in damages? $400 million. Within 72 hours, federal regulators from the FTC and the Department of Commerce launched a formal investigation into Apex's data practices. What they found was damning. Internal emails showed Daniel had been warned, repeatedly. Security audits flagged as incomplete. Engineer recommendations dismissed or ignored. The rushed 90-day timeline? Daniel's decision, made against unanimous technical advice from his entire engineering team. One email stood out, dated January 8, 2019. Simone Graves to Daniel Westbrook. If we launch without reinforcing our security infrastructure, we are gambling with our clients' data. This is not a hypothetical risk. This is a certainty. Daniel's response, sent 11 minutes later. Noted. Moving forward as planned. Former employees started speaking publicly. Simone Graves gave a detailed interview to Wired on March 22nd. Her words were careful, measured, devastating. We begged him to delay the launch. We showed him the vulnerabilities. We walked him through every risk. And he told us, repeatedly, that the deal was more important than our concerns. This wasn't an accident. This breach was completely, entirely preventable. On March 29th, 12 days after the breach, Apex's board of directors held an emergency meeting. The board, once silent, once complicit in Daniel's decisions, demanded accountability. At 4:17 p.m., they forced Daniel Westbrook to resign as CEO of the company he built from nothing. By April, Apex had lost 60% of its client base. Companies fled in waves. Stock value collapsed from over $1 billion to under $200 million. Lawsuits piled up from clients, partners, and affected businesses. By mid-summer, bankruptcy seemed not just possible, inevitable. But the real cost wasn't measured in dollars. 147 employees lost their jobs. engineers, designers, support staff, people who believed in Daniel's vision, who worked nights and weekends to build something meaningful. Gone. Dr. Patricia Nguyen, the investor who warned Daniel about security back in 2008, who told him it could never be an afterthought, lost her entire investment, $7 million, every cent she'd put into Apex, wiped out. She later told a reporter, "I knew Daniel had potential, but I also knew what would destroy him, and I told him. He just didn't listen." If this story's shaking you, hit that subscribe button. The final chapter will leave you thinking for days. 6 months after the collapse, Daniel Westbrook gave one final interview. It was with a small tech podcast. No cameras, just audio. He looked different in the photos that surfaced later. Older, thinner. The confidence that once defined him was gone. The host asked him why he built Apex in the first place. Daniel's voice was quiet, tired. "I built Apex because I wanted to prove I wasn't a failure, that the kid who got laughed out of investor meetings, who burned through his savings on a product nobody wanted, that he wasn't worthless. But somewhere along the way, it stopped being about solving problems. It became about being someone, about headlines, about proving everyone who doubted me wrong. And in trying to prove them wrong, I proved them right." The host asked if he'd do anything differently. Daniel paused for a long time. Then he said, "I'd listen. To Simone, to Marcus, to Patricia. They were all trying to save me from myself. I just couldn't hear it over my own ambition." Daniel Westbrook's story isn't about technology failure. It's about human failure. It's about what happens when the need to win becomes more important than the responsibility to protect. Was Daniel a visionary who took one risk too many? Or was he a cautionary tale about ego disguised as ambition? Perhaps the answer is simpler. He was a man who forgot that the people who warn you aren't trying to stop you. They're trying to save you. By then, it was too late to listen. If this hit you hard, let us know. Like this video. Share it. These stories matter. Right now, somewhere, another founder is ignoring warnings. Another leader is chasing headlines over safety. Another company is one bad decision away from collapse. If you're building something, a company, a product, a dream, remember Daniel Westbrook. Remember that success built on ignored warnings isn't success. It's a timer counting down. This is Empire Stories, where we uncover the truth behind billion-dollar rises and billion-dollar falls. If you want more stories that dig deeper than the headlines, like, comment, and share for someone who might need this. Don't forget to subscribe. Hit that notification bell, because every empire has secrets, and we're going to find them. Thanks for watching.